This is Jill Pack with the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode number 93, entitled Fear is the Problem. Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack. I'm a certified life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want you to know that no matter your season or circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life. And I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here today. We have officially survived the first week of January. Isn't that awesome? How is everyone doing? How are you feeling about it all? I hope you're doing good, and I hope you're allowing yourself to move into this new year at your own pace. If you like to set goals and resolutions, awesome. If you don't, awesome. Last week on the podcast, I talked about the pause principle. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that yet, I invite you to do so, and I'll put a link in the show notes. Part of this principle is learning what to say no to in your life and what to say yes to in your life, in order to live your life in a way that lines up with your personal values. If we never take the time to pause and consider what we value and then choose our life on purpose, we end up living a life on default, which I believe is really no way to live. If you're interested in working with me this year to become a creator of your life, I would love to be your coach. So just visit my website, www.seasons-coaching.com/work-with-me. To learn more about my one-on-one season of creation coaching program, go there. So now on to this week's episode. When I first found out about life coaching, I remember hearing the phrase, all problems are thought problems. And I believe we can take that a little further and say all problems are fear problems. There is a book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin De Becker. It is a fascinating read, and the author talks about how every creature on earth has this ability to predict danger and get out of its way. As humans, our brain is designed to keep us safe. We each have this basic survival skill or intuition, if you will, within us to help us stay safe. However, as humans in the modern world, we also struggle with a lot of unwarranted fear. And this is what I want to speak about today. Life coach and author Kim Giles teaches in her book Clarity Point that the two core fears that we each face in our lives are these. One, fear of failure, and that's the fear that we're not enough. Or the second fear is the fear of loss, the fear that our life isn't enough. Now, think about the last time that you did something that maybe you felt stupid or embarrassed. Right? Think about what happened for you. Did your face turn red? Did your heart race? Right? Do you remember how you felt in that moment? And do you know why that experience was so painful? It's because it triggered the core fear of not being enough. I think as women of faith, we all struggle with this feeling like we are not enough. We aren't smart enough. We aren't thin or fit enough. We aren't organized enough. We aren't spiritual enough. We aren't articulate enough. We aren't funny enough. We aren't driven enough. We aren't social enough, right? You get the idea. And comparison comes so easy to us. It can seem like we're failing at everything or we're falling short in some way or another. No matter how hard we try at one thing, we fall short at another thing, which reinforces this belief that we aren't enough. And then that fear continues to be there and actually grows stronger. As children, we learned in many different ways that we needed to be different than we were. Who we were wasn't good enough. We needed to change in some way. We heard things like, don't do that, or you need to sit still, or be good, or settle down, be quiet, speak up, or you need to be outgoing, or you should be less outgoing, right? You get the idea. Now, I'm not saying that our parents did anything wrong. They did the best they could. We all do the best we can, right? But there is this subtle message that we all grow up hearing and taking away with us, that we need to be different than we are. As we get older, the fear may have grown into a fear of failure, fear of looking bad, and a fear of judgment. Then as we become adults, it becomes a fear of being rejected or abandoned or unworthy of love. Every time we felt something like shame, disappointment, or hurt, the fear grew bigger and clouded our vision of who we really are. I've heard it referred to as the adaptive child. We learned how to adapt over time to protect ourselves, which overshadowed our feelings of love. This fear of failure can show up in a lot of different ways and causes us problems in our life. This fear is negatively affecting how we show up in our life. Take a minute and consider about what your fear of not being enough is costing you. How has it blocked you from living a life you love? Is it affecting your ability to feel joy? Is it keeping you from connecting with the people in your life? Is it keeping you from trying new things? Are you always worried about what other people think about you? When we live in the fear of not being enough, it negatively affects us. So the second core fear is this. It's the fear of loss. We experience this fear on a regular basis when we believe that our life isn't good enough. We're fearing that we will lose our sense of security or control. We fear losing our reputation, our respect, loved ones, money, time, opportunities, or validation from others. So I want to invite you to take another minute here and think about how this fear affects your daily life. How often do you worry that you're going to be taken advantage of or mistreated, or that you won't get what you need or deserve? How often do you believe that life isn't fair? How do you show up in your life when you feel this fear? And then how do you treat other people when you're feeling that fear? When we feel like our life isn't enough, it feeds into controlling and manipulating behaviors. We get offended easily. We're overly emotional and highly reactive. Fear of loss can cause problems in all areas of our life. Understanding these two core fears, fear of failure and fear of loss, and how they show up for us in our life is very important. It helps us gain greater awareness around why we do what we do, all in an effort to quiet those two fears. Sometimes we even do good things in an effort to quiet these fears. We may fall into the people-pleasing trap or the self-sacrificing mentality because we are seeking validation or approval from others. Can you see this in your life? Which of these two fears do you see is the bigger issue for you? Is it the fear of loss or the fear of failure? And what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of failing or being rejected or looking bad? Or are you more afraid of being taken advantage of or losing something or missing out on something? Once we understand fear, that fear is causing our problems, we have the power to change it. And awareness is the first step. I'm going to share with you some fear-based thinking, or what I call false beliefs, that might be causing you problems in your life. And these false beliefs are keeping you from living your beautiful life. So the first one is fear keeps us focused on ourselves. It's very self-centered, right? We cannot show up for others when we are worried about getting the love and attention, fair treatment, or validation that we believe that we need from other people. We're always seeking it. And so we become so focused on us that we miss out on the beauty of relationship, of finding that attention and validation for our own self. The second one is it can seem safer to stay in fear, right? We can believe that it's harmless and we're just staying where we are in an effort to protect ourselves. But this keeps us from thriving, from living how we were meant to live, and that is no way to live. Another one is fear keeps us in a place of lack and scarcity. It may cause us to be jealous of others. And again, we're needing that validation from other people to feel like we're enough or that our life is enough. Fear makes us feel like everything is about us. We take things personally. We believe that things people say or do in some way are a reflection of our value and our worth. Fear leads us to believe that value is hierarchical, that one person's value and worth can be greater than another person's, that we must earn our worth by what we do or achieve. Fear tells us that we have to be perfect. It's that critic inside your head that lives there and it judges everything you do or say and everything that other people do or say. And this critic tells you that if you aren't perfect, then you aren't good enough. This lie of perfection then keeps us believing that we will never be good enough. Fear creates the idea that there are winners and losers in life. If someone else wins, then we lose. And this feeds comparison, judgment, and the need to be better than other people so that we can be of value. Fear causes us to focus on the differences in others. We see these differences as being better or worse, right? People that we don't understand are bad, and those that we do are good. Fear feeds into in almost every negative emotion. Giles says it this way: fear is behind anger, jealousy, guilt, suspicion, rejection, hurt, and pessimism. It's the cause of depression, discouragement, and frustration. It is a place of ego, pride, defensiveness, anxiety, concern, protecting, getting, gaining, and proving your value. It is behind judgment, criticism, contention, and every other negative state you can experience, unquote. Fear skews what we see as appearing real, and it usually isn't accurate. We are confusing the facts with our fears. And when we live from a place of fear, we can't be who we really are meant to be. And this causes us to forget love and prevents us from really connecting with ourselves, with others, and even God. Ironically, we are avoiding believing something that might cause us to feel a negative emotion if things don't work out, but we're still feeling negative emotion, right? We're avoiding doing things that might not work out the way we want, which could also cause us to feel a negative emotion. We hold ourselves back because we don't want to feel what we're going to feel when failure or loss happens. But can't you see we're creating negative emotion ahead of time? Here's what's interesting about that. When we don't meet our expectations, the only feeling we're going to end up having is based on what we decide to think, right? We set out to do something, we have this expectation of the result, and then we miss that expectation. That actually isn't good or bad. It just is. At that point, we get to decide what we're going to make it mean. We get to decide what we're going to think about that. And if we think about it in a way that hurts our feelings, if we think about it in a way that's disappointing, then we're going to experience that negative emotion. But the truth is, things happen, and then we decide to make it mean something that hurts. We decide to make it mean something that causes us a negative emotion. When I was struggling with the choices of my adult children, I was making their choices mean something about me. I was making it mean that I was a terrible mother. Every mother's worst fear, right? If I had done things differently, it wouldn't be this way. I was believing that the frustration I was feeling was just happening to me and that it was my kids' fault. If they would change, then I could feel better. I was trying to control the uncontrollable because I was afraid. I was creating my own experience and the quality of my relationships with my adult children because of what I was believing about them and their choices. When circumstances happen, we can decide to make that mean the end of the world, or we can decide to make that mean something that feels better. Now, I want to be clear here. Do I want to be happy about everything? No, probably not. But instead of believing that everything has gone wrong with my adult children and focusing on all the things that I think they're doing wrong, I changed my perspective. Instead of resisting who they are and what they're choosing, I'm accepting that they're on their own journey, and my job is to love them, not to save them. They have a Savior for that. My children are here on earth for the same reason as I am, to learn and grow by experience. The earthly experience was divinely designed in a way for our best good, which includes opposition in all things. Not a few things, all the things. We are all beloved children of loving heavenly parents who are aware of us, and they created a plan of redemption for all of their children. I can have hope in Christ that He will do what He said He would do. The trials and the struggles in our life are the very things that can help us see the Savior for who He is. Each of us are on our own journey to come and know Him in our own personal way, whatever that looks like. The only thing that I really have control over is the person who I want to be. I want to be the person who shows up in love. That doesn't mean that I don't create healthy boundaries, but I never set them from a place of fear, of anger, or resentment. It's always from a place of love for everyone in the story, which includes me. Now, I continue to practice beliefs that feel better. I refuse to beat myself up when I miss the mark of who I want to be. I pick myself up and I learn from the experience. I truly believe that everything is figure-outable and that we are here on earth to experience joy. Sometimes I'm going to feel fear, but when I do, I slow down and I ask myself, is this real, useful fear that's going to protect me from physical harm? Or is it a false fear that I'm creating for myself from a false belief? If it is a false fear, I remind myself that it can't hurt me and I don't have to be afraid because it's only a perception of danger. By learning to face your false fears, you can begin showing up in your relationships as who you want to be. You can begin thriving in your own life. You can begin living in abundance and providing your own validation. You can begin recognizing the awe and wonder in yourself and in others, knowing that we are all 100% worthy and valuable in the sight of God. You can begin letting go of perfection, judgment, comparison, and begin embracing all of you with compassion. You can begin seeing things as they really are. You can begin living your true identity as a divine child of heavenly parents who love you. I want to invite you to consider at least one false belief or false fear that you can just set down and leave behind so that you can begin creating a life you want to live and becoming the person you want to become. That's all I have for you today. Have a joyful week. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, I would love it if you would share it with your friends and family and leave me a rating and review. If you'd like to learn more about what life coaching is, please schedule a free discovery call with me where we can work together through something that's causing you a problem. Just go to my website, seasons-coaching.com, and you can also find information about my Seasons of Joy one-on-one coaching program and my Seasons of Joy community. Have a joyful week, and I'll see you next time.